The sky above the frozen world of Ilyara VII was always gray. Wind howled through towers made of silver stone, and the air carried a metallic taste that burned the throat. This was not a place made for humans, yet humans worked their small figures in heavy suits, repairing power lines and mining energy crystals for their alien rulers. The rulers were the Valith Dominion, a proud and ancient species with silver skin, long elegant horns, and cold blue eyes. They ruled over many planets. To them, humans were just another defeated race, useful for labor. Weak in spirit, their queen Seraphine Valith was known across the stars as the Iron Empress. Her word was law, her eyes sharper than any blade. She believed mercy was weakness, compassion was poison, and emotions were nothing but a distraction from order. Under her rule, the Valith Empire was strong, but cold, like a machine that had forgotten how to feel. When Seraphine's soldiers captured a human engineer named Elias Wren, they expected another frightened worker. He had been repairing a collapsed reactor tunnel when they found him. His tools were still warm, and the dust on his coat showed he had worked through the night. When the soldiers surrounded him, he didn't run. He simply turned, looked at them, and said calmly, "If you're here to arrest me, at least let me finish tightening this bolt. It might stop a leak." The soldiers stared in surprise. No human spoke like that not on Ilyara VII. They seized him and dragged him to the Crystal Palace at the city's center, where Queen Seraphine ruled from her throne of light. Inside the great hall, the floor shimmered like frozen water. Hundreds of Valith nobles stood in silence as Elias was brought before the queen. She sat tall, her silver hair braided like a crown, her eyes like frozen fire. "Name," she demanded. "Elias Wren," he said, his voice steady. "You were repairing a reactor without command. That is forbidden. You risked the stability of an entire city." Her voice echoed through the chamber. Elias met her gaze. "The reactor was leaking. If I didn't fix it, it could have killed thousands, including your people." A low murmur spread through the hall. No one dared speak to the queen that way. Seraphine's eyes narrowed. "And what makes you think a human's judgment is better than my overseers?" Elias shrugged. "Because they weren't there. I was. I saw the danger. I acted." For the first time in many years, Seraphine felt a flicker of curiosity instead of anger. This human did not tremble. He didn't flatter. He simply spoke truth. "You do not fear me?" she asked quietly. Elias looked at her, calm but firm. "Fear doesn't help anyone. If you plan to punish me, then do it. But if you care about your people, check the reactor first." The hall fell silent again. The queen leaned back, studying him. Then she spoke a single command: "Bring me proof." Hours later, the queen's inspectors returned, pale and shaken. The human had been right, the reactor was close to melt down. His work had saved the city. The queen summoned Elias again. "You saved thousands," she said, "but you disobeyed my law." "Sometimes," Elias said softly, "laws are slower than danger." Her eyes glimmered with something almost human: interest, confusion, maybe even respect. "You are bold," she said, "and foolish. I've been called worse." Against all logic, she did not order his execution. Instead, she assigned him to work under her direct observation. "You will repair the colony's energy systems," she said. "You will live in the palace under guard. I will study your methods." Elias bowed slightly. "As long as I can work, I'm fine." From that day, his life changed. He was given a small chamber near the palace workshops. The alien machines around him were strange, but he learned fast. He often hummed human songs while fixing wires or adjusting energy conduits. The Valith guards who watched him thought its strange music was almost unknown among their people. At first, Seraphine watched from afar through her holographic screens. But one evening, as she passed through the lower levels of the palace, she saw him herself covered in grease, repairing a generator, humming softly as sparks danced around him. "You sing while you work," she said, stepping closer. He looked up, surprised. "Helps me think," he said. Makes the noise feel less empty. Empty. He nodded. Your machines are perfect. But they sound lonely. She tilted her head, puzzled. Machines do not feel. Maybe not, he said. But the people who build them do. That night, Seraphin couldn't sleep. His words echoed in her mind. The people who build them do? It was nonsense. Feelings were chaos. Yet for some reason, she found herself walking again to the lower levels the next evening. Over the next weeks. She visited often at first under the excuse of inspections, later for reasons she couldn't name. She watched how Elias treated others. When a young Valeth worker burned his hand, Elias stopped his own work to wrap the wound. When an old machine failed, he didn't blame anyone, he just smiled and said, "Let's fix it together." It was strange. No human had ever smiled in the palace. No alien had ever seen one smile that way. One day she asked him directly, "Why do you help them?" "They are not your kind." He looked at her and said simply, "Pain doesn't care about kind." "Neither should healing." She said nothing. But that night, when she looked in the mirror, she saw a faint change in her eyes, like the first crack in ice before spring. Weeks passed. The city began to change too. The Valeth workers started talking to the humans more often. They shared tools, traded food, even laughed quietly when the guards weren't looking. The queen didn't stop it. She just watched, but not everyone liked the change. In the council chambers, the nobles whispered. "The queen grows soft," said one. "She spends too much time near that human." "Perhaps he controls her," said another. "He is dangerous." They brought their fears to the queen. "Your Majesty," one advisor said carefully, "this Elias Wren may be using your curiosity. Humans are unpredictable." The queen listened, expression cold. "You fear him because he speaks freely," she said. "Perhaps you should learn to do the same." The council fell silent. Still, doubt began to stir in her mind. Was she truly being wise, or was she allowing weakness into her heart? She pushed the thought away. But destiny had already chosen its path. One morning, a distant explosion shook the city. The main reactor, the same one Elias had once repaired, was failing again. A full meltdown could destroy half the colony. Guards rushed to the queen's chamber. "Your Majesty, the core is unstable. We must evacuate." "Where is the human?" Seraphin asked. "In the reactor zone," a soldier said. "He went there before anyone else." Her heart gave a strange, painful twist. Without another word, she left her throne and ran. Inside the reactor building, smoke filled the air. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Alarms screamed in every corridor. And there, standing on a platform above the glowing core, was Elias, his suit torn, his face pale, but his hands steady as he rewired a cluster of circuits. "Elias," she shouted, "get out of there." He looked back and smiled faintly. "Almost done. You'll die." "Then I'll die saving lives," he said. "That's better than running." She froze. His calmness, his courage, it was something no Valeth warrior ever showed without pride or arrogance. He was doing this not for glory, but for others. Before she could stop him, the control panel burst in sparks. He pressed the last command, sealing the core. The shaking stopped. The alarms fell silent. The meltdown was prevented. Elias staggered, then collapsed. Seraphin rushed forward, ignoring the heat, ignoring the guards who tried to stop her. She caught him before he hit the ground. His body was weak, trembling from radiation burns. "You fool," she whispered. "Why would you do this?" He opened his eyes slowly, his voice faint but steady. "Because someone had to. Because..." "Compassion isn't weakness, Seraphin. It's what keeps the world alive." His eyes closed and his breathing slowed. The queen felt something she hadn't in centuries' fear, not of death, but of loss. She carried him herself to the palace medchamber. The Valeth doctors protested, saying his injuries were too severe. "He is human, Your Majesty," one said. "Their bodies are weak. He cannot survive." "Then make him strong," she ordered. "Use every resource we have." For days, she stayed in that chamber, watching the machines heal him. She didn't return to her throne. The nobles were shocked. The people whispered. But the queen didn't care. Each day she spoke to his sleeping form. "You defied me," she said once, her voice soft. "You should have feared me. Yet you didn't. You saved my city. You saved my people. And now you make me feel this. This ache I cannot name." When the doctors told her his condition was stable, she stayed still for a long time, just listening to the quiet rhythm of his heart monitor. For the first time in her reign, she smiled, not the cold, perfect smile of a ruler, but a small, human smile, almost invisible. Outside, the people of El Yara whispered of miracles. The queen had been seen carrying a human in her arms. The sky that had been gray for decades seemed to lighten that week, as if the planet itself felt the change. But the queen didn't notice the gossip. She sat beside Elias's bed, silent, thoughtful. She remembered his words again. "You can't fix a broken world by crushing its heart." Those words followed her into her dreams. She saw visions of her empire, strong but hollow, beautiful but lifeless. And in every vision, she saw him standing there, light flickering behind him, offering her something fragile and warm. When morning came, she stood before the mirror in her private chamber. Her reflection stared back, same eyes, same silver crown, but something different inside. She touched her chest gently. "Faye." When Elias Wren opened his eyes, everything was white. Soft light glowed from the walls, and the air smelled clean and cool. For a moment, he thought he was still dreaming. Then he felt a faint ache in his chest, and the strange weight of bandages around his arms. Machines hummed quietly beside him. He blinked and tried to move, but a calm voice stopped him. "Do not rise yet." Queen Seraphine stood at the foot of his bed. Gone was her shining armor and jeweled crown. She wore a plain silver robe, her long hair tied back. For the first time, she looked less like a ruler and more like a person. "You should rest," she said. "Your body has not fully healed." Elias smiled faintly. "Still alive, then?" "Because you refused to die. My healers did all they could, but it was your heart that carried you back." He looked at her with tired eyes. "So, did I save the city?" The queen nodded. "You did. Ilyara still stands, and so do its people." "That's good," he murmured. "That's all I wanted." For a long time neither spoke. The room was silent, except for the hum of the medical machines. Then the queen moved closer, her hands clasped in front of her. "You defied me," she said. "You risked everything. And yet you saved those who once enslaved you." Elias chuckled weakly. "Guess I'm not very good at hate." Her lips curved slightly, almost into a smile. "You are a strange creature, Elias Wren." "Maybe," he said, his voice quiet, "but maybe strange is what your world needed." The queen fell silent again. Something warm stirred in her chest, something she still didn't understand. For centuries she had ruled through fear and command. Now, standing beside this fragile human, she felt something stronger than fear, something that made her want to protect, not control. Elia spent several weeks recovering. The queen visited him every day. Sometimes she brought reports from the palace. Other times she just sat and listened while he talked about Earth, the blue oceans, the smell of rain, and the warmth of sunlight on skin. The queen listened like a child hearing stories for the first time. She had seen 1,000 planets, but she had never seen Earth through the eyes of someone who loved it. "You humans miss the small things," she said one day as he described the sound of laughter in crowded streets. "Maybe," Elias replied, "but it's the small things that keep life big." She looked out the window at her glittering city. "We built towers that reached the clouds. We conquered worlds. Yet Ilyara feels empty." "That's because your people forgot to live," Elias said gently. "You made everything perfect, but you took the heart out of it." Her gaze turned to him. "You think I took their hearts? I think you hid yours first," he answered softly. Those words struck deep. That night, she couldn't sleep. She walked through the silent palace, her bare feet touching the cold floor. Every corridor echoed with memories, battles fought, laws written, punishments delivered. But now, for the first time, she saw not power, but loneliness. Days passed, and the queen began to change. She visited the workers' quarters without guards. She asked them what they needed, and when they hesitated, she listened instead of commanding. When she saw hungry children, she ordered food to be shared. When she passed injured soldiers, she stopped to speak to them. The Valeth nobles were shocked. "The queen bends herself before commoners," one whispered. "She forgets who she is." But among the people, whispers grew into hope. The humans began to call her the Silver Heart, and even some of her own kind started smiling when she passed. One morning, the queen invited Elias to walk with her through the energy gardens, a vast dome filled with glowing vines that powered half the city. The air shimmered with soft green light. "Beautiful," Elias said, looking around. "Yes," she said quietly. "But I never saw it this way before," he smiled. "That's because you never slowed down long enough to look." They walked side by side in silence. For the first time, the queen felt peace. But peace did not last. In the council chambers, unrest was rising. The High Minister, a stern Valeth named Kareth, called a secret meeting. "She is changing," he told the others. "This human has infected her mind. Soon she will destroy all that we built. What will you do?" Another noble asked. "We will protect the Empire," Kareth said coldly, "even if it means protecting it from our queen." The council planned quietly. They would accuse Elias of manipulating Seraphine. They would claim he used forbidden technology to control her emotions. If they could prove this, they could exile him more worse, and the queen would have no choice but to agree the next day. As Elias worked in the garden, guards surrounded him. "By order of the council," one announced, "you are under arrest for treason and manipulation of the royal mind." Elias frowned. "What?" "I didn't before he could finish. They seized his arms and dragged him away." When the queen heard the news, she felt a surge of emotion so strong that even her guards stepped back. "Who dares give such an order without my command?" she demanded. "Your council, Majesty," said Kareth calmly. "We fear this human's influence has clouded your reason. For the safety of the Dominion, he must be judged." Seraphine's eyes flashed. "Then he will be judged by me." The tribunal was held in the Grand Hall. Thousands gathered, Valeth and human alike. Elias stood in the center, pale but steady, his hands bound by energy cuffs. The council stood to one side, their faces cold and proud. Queen Seraphine entered last. Her robe trailed behind her like a river of light. When she looked at Elias, her heart ached, but she forced herself to stay calm. The High Minister bowed. "Your Majesty, we bring evidence that this human has altered your judgment. Your sudden acts of compassion endanger the stability of our rule." Seraphine's gaze turned sharp. "You mean the stability of your power?" Kareth continued, ignoring the sting. "If he is allowed to live among us, rebellion will spread. Already workers speak of freedom, of equality. He must be removed before chaos begins." The queen stood silently for a long moment. Then she descended from the throne and walked to Elias. "Did you do this?" she asked softly. Elias looked up at her, eyes calm. "No, Seraphine. I didn't change you. You changed yourself." Something inside her broke free. The queen turned to her council. Her voice was quiet but filled with strength. "You accuse him of corruption," she said. "But it was he who reminded me what corruption truly is. Our cruelty, our pride, our fear of feeling." Gasps rippled through the hall. The High Minister stepped forward. "Majesty, please. You cannot rule through emotion. Compassion is weakness." The queen's eyes blazed. "If compassion is weakness," she declared, "then let me be weak. If mercy is madness, then I have gone mad at last." Her voice echoed like thunder through the hall. "Elias Wren is not our enemy. He is the reason Eliara still stands. And from this day forward, no being human or Valeth will live as a slave under my rule." The council erupted in protest. Some shouted, some fled. But the people in the crowd, workers, soldiers, even children jeered. For the first time in living memory, they cheered for their queen. Elias stood in stunned silence as the queen approached and unlocked his cuffs herself. "You are free," she said. He looked at her with quiet gratitude. "So are you," he replied. Weeks turned into months. Change swept across Ilyara. The humans were no longer forced laborers. The Valeth shared their technology openly. The council tried to resist, but the people stood with their queen. Elias worked beside her, helping design systems that healed the planet's frozen soil. Together they built the Garden Domes, vast green spaces that turned gray wastelands into life. Children, human and Valeth alike, played under the new sunlight. The queen often visited the gardens at dusk. She liked the sound of laughter more than the sound of soldiers' boots. One evening, she found Elias sitting by the energy pond, watching the light shimmer across the water. She sat beside him quietly. "You know," she said, "when I first saw you, I thought you were a fool." Elias chuckled. "I probably was." She smiled, a real smile this time. "But your foolishness changed a world." He looked at her, thoughtful. "Maybe it wasn't foolishness. Maybe it was faith." "In what?" "In the idea that anyone Ellen an alien queen can choose to be kind." Seraphim looked away, the stars reflected in her silver eyes. "You taught me that compassion does not make one smaller. It makes the world larger." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the soft hum of life returning to the planet. Then Elias said quietly, "You gave your people hope. That's not something many rulers can do." "I only followed your example," she said. "You faced power and did not bow. You risked your life for strangers. I learned from you." He smiled gently. "Then I guess we both learned something." As years passed, the story of the human and the queen spread beyond Ilyara. Other worlds of the Valeth Dominion began to change too. Leaders who once ruled through fear started listening to their people. Slowly, compassion became part of their code of honor. Elias never sought fame. He lived quietly, teaching children how to build, how to grow food, how to dream. The queen often joined him, wearing simple clothes so the children wouldn't be afraid. Sometimes they would ask, "Are you really the queen?" She would smile and answer, "Once I was only a ruler. Now I try to be a person." And the children would laugh, not out of fear, but joy. One night, long after the suns had set, the queen stood on the palace balcony. The city below glowed with gentle light. No warships filled the sky, no sirens wailed. Only the calm breath of a world at peace. Elias joined her quietly, carrying 2 cups of warm tea.